I've never been a Doxa fan. In fact, I actively dislike the Doxa design language. Everything from the domed cushion cases, overly bright dial colors, and even the hands. I'm not even a hardcore dive watch enthusiast, so Doxa as a watch brand never resonated with me. And despite the hype among collectors, I just didn't get the appeal of this Swiss brand. That is, until I tried this one. So what's changed now? Let's just say I was wrong. I get it now, Doxa fans, I get it. Please accept me as one of your own, because this watch has shown me why collectors are so into this brand. I've worn the watch a ton since I bought it last year, and it's got a bunch of features I love. And in this video, I'm gonna talk about why everyone should give Doxa a try, even if you are someone who doesn't like the brand. That said, this watch has one glaring shortcoming. I'll get to that later. First, let's talk about this Seafoam green Sub 200T. This is a limited edition of 100 pieces celebrating 100 years of watches of Switzerland. And I was completely unaware of this watch until I accidentally stumbled into it. It was summer of last year and my friend was visiting New York and wanted to check out some watches. He decided to visit Watches of Switzerland in Soho and asked me to go with him. I wasn't in the market for a watch, but sure, I said I'd go with him. And guess who ended up buying a new watch? Yeah, that's right. $1,700 poorer, lesson learned. Don't accompany friends to watch shops. All considering, it wasn't the worst thing to happen because this was the last Seafoam model available at Watches of Switzerland. Now they're all sold out as far as I know. So maybe sometimes an impulse purchase isn't the worst thing to do. Subscribe for more terrible financial advice. Anyway, I've really not regretted buying this watch in the long term because there's so much to love here, starting with the mint green dial. And this dial is really something. It's got a beautiful sunray finish that's vibrant and captivating. The hands on the watch are unique, with the minute's hand being oversized and the second's hand being squared off. The gold-toned hands and minute markers combined with the off-centered text creates a distinct and unconventionally attractive look. It's not just me saying this either. Despite having a somewhat large collection, remember the problem I mentioned, hardly anyone notices my watches. However, there are two timepieces people always stop me for. The Studio Underdog Pizza watch, and this Doxa Sub 200T. In fact, I'm pretty sure this watch holds the dubious title of being my most complimented watch. Even muggles, non-watch people, have admired the watch face. And it's truly eye-catching, and not in the Invicta kind of way. The Doxa also manages to do this without looking too feminine, which is a complaint I've had with some other mint green dials in the past. Now I know Doxa offer like 57 different dial colors, including their signature orange professional dial. That one is still a bit too much for me. But what about you? Do you like the orange dial or prefer some other? Let me know in the comments. As for me, I like the Caribbean or Shark Hunter. I mean, come on. Who wouldn't want a watch called the freaking Shark Hunter? Whoever's naming these definitely needs a raise. But if I had to pick just one dial option, it's gotta be this Seafoam. This dial is just too good. Okay, I've been on this for too long. Let's move on.
What? You want to move on?
Not from you, baby. We're just talking about watches here. I promise.
A few moments later.
So anyway, keeping the dial aside, let's talk about the next aspect I've grown to like. That's the unmistakable Doxa cushion case. The Sub 200T has a mostly brushed stainless steel case that measures 39mm wide by 41.5mm long by 10.7mm thick. The dial itself is much smaller, measuring only about 30mm or so in diameter. So at first, the dial does appear small, but I found myself getting used to it pretty quickly. Generally, cushion-cased watches wear large, but the Doxa Sub 200T wears perfectly on my 6-inch wrist. Due to the short lug-to-lug, this Doxa wears like a 37mm round watch. And I think the Sub 200T would look great on wrists as small as 5 inches all the way up to 7 inches. Here it is on my wife's 5.5-inch wrist. Looks perfect. Also, the 10.7mm thickness means that it's actually pretty slim for a 200-meter dive watch. For comparison, that's 2mm slimmer than the Tudor Black Bay 54. Overall, it falls within the Goldilocks dimensions and looks great on the wrist. The crown recesses almost flush with the curved case, giving the watch a sleek look. But this look comes at the cost of convenience, because this screw-down crown is not the easiest to unscrew and use. A small but noteworthy disadvantage. In signature Doxa style, the bezel is physically elevated from the case and features a highly knurled bezel. As you can see, the bezel features two scales. The black print is the graduated dive scale, and the second, green font, depicts a function no one has quite figured out yet. It's supposed to be some sort of a no decompression scale, whatever that means. Just kidding. This scale indicates the maximum time you can be at a certain depth without having to pause to decompress on your ascent. You just have to align the pip with the minutes before you start diving. Looking at the green scale, you can gauge that you can spend a maximum of 25 minutes at 100 feet if doing a no compression dive. Similarly, you can spend a maximum of 40 minutes if doing 80 feet. For a more in-depth guide, check the link in the description. But I'm not sure who's actually using this bezel with more accurate dive computers available today. Maybe Jack Cousteau or someone. Who's Jack Cousteau? Mr. Cousteau was a legendary diver and explorer and one of the pioneers of underwater explorations, with Doxa being one of his favorite brands. And even though no one other than Mr. Cousteau is taking the watch diving, it does serve another, arguably more important function, a fidget toy. Because I can't stop playing with this 120-click unidirectional bezel. The bezel action is super precise and crispy. Just listen to this. Oof. If this isn't ASMR, I don't know what is. Now, like a proper tool watch, the Sub 200T has a closed case back. Usually I tend to find closed case backs a bit boring. But with the Doxa, I still find it a little boring. But less so, thanks to the engraved ship Doxa logo and the cutouts representing a ship's wheel. There's also a bunch of commemorative text indicating the limitedness and association with watches of Switzerland. As you can see, my watch is also number 77 of 100, so that's cool, I guess. Behind this case back is a Sellita SW200-1 movement. Doxa state no accuracy measurement for this 38-hour 4Hz automatic movement, but I observed it to be running within plus or minus 5 seconds a day. To be honest, Sellita 200-1 movements are boring because everyone and their grandmothers use this movement. Even my grandmother used to run on a good old Sellita movement. Jokes aside, there's not much to say about this movement other than the fact that it's a very standard, reliable Swiss caliber. It's not gonna have the best finishing or accuracy, but it's a workhorse and should work just fine for years. So it's frustrating to see Doxa offer only a 2-year warranty on their watches. In 2025, 5 years should be the industry standard. Coming to the bracelet, the Doxa Sub 200T comes on the almost iconic beads of rice bracelet. The outer flat links are brushed, while the inner beads of rice are more polished. I know this bracelet is kind of divisive in terms of looks, but I like it. I think it completes the look of a mid-century diver. Also, this thing is surprisingly comfortable. I've had no issues with hair pulling or discomfort. And what's even better is the clasp. While the Tudor T-Fit system is more sophisticated technically, Doxa's sliding diver's clasp is far more efficient and offers a huge 10mm extension on the fly. And the best part is that you can even resize it with the watch on. I can't tell you how comfortable this mechanism has been, especially when I'm outdoors. And yes, watch nerds also venture outdoors. Sometimes. And if you still want to swap the bracelet, Doxa also includes an extra strap with the watch. Most Sub 200Ts come with a rubber strap, but this limited edition comes with a color-matched NATO strap. I like the color of the strap, but I'm not a NATO guy. I think it makes the watch awkward on the wrist. The traditional way to wear a NATO is like this, where you thread one end through the spring bar and get the other end through the loop. This method is quick and convenient, but involves having a double layer of strap under the case, making the watch wear bulky. A better method is like this, where you can position the other end of the strap towards the middle of the case and then wear the watch like this. You thread the strap through both the loops at once and finally fold it back like this. The result is a watch that wears much slimmer. When I do put the watch on a NATO, I wear it like this. For the most part, the watch stays on the bracelet. And as I said earlier, I've worn the watch a ton because it's super practical as a daily wearer. Firstly, it's good looking, so I'm always tempted to put it on, probably overcompensating for my own looks. Anyway, the 200 meter water resistance means that you don't have to worry about getting it wet. Next is that the case is sized compactly, doesn't appear overbearing and wears slim. The bracelet looks charming while still being comfortable. And most importantly, the diverse extension allowing on-the-fly adjustments without taking the bracelet off is just the best feature to me personally. Talking about personal preferences, I always like having a date. And yes, I'm still talking about watches, so having this feature here helps me remember anniversaries. Wait, today's the 26th? Oh no. That said, there is one feature that's absolutely lackluster, which is the mediocre loom on the watch. Come on, Doxa. This is supposed to be a functional dive watch from a storied dive watch maker. Then why is the loom on it so subpar? And I'm not even kidding when I say this watch is almost unusable in the dark. The loom is weakly applied and glows very dim. And I generally don't care so much about loom, but given the diving heritage with the brand, I found the poor loom here very disappointing. Had the loom application been better, I would have called this the perfect watch under 2K, but I just can't now. That said, the watch is still excellent in all other departments and I will still continue wearing it a bunch. Before concluding, let's hear my wife's take on the watch, because she's always right and whatever she says is the absolute truth.
I really like this one. It's one of the best looking watches in your collection. Better than any Rolex or Tudor you have.
There you go. The Doxa is officially approved by the wife. In closing, I still feel that these are an acquired taste. The shape is unusual and the colors may be overwhelming. At first glance, they may appear ugly, but get to know them and they grow on you. And I'm not just talking about myself here. I know that Doxa watches can be polarizing, but I think you should give them a try. And if you have been considering a Doxa Sub, I would highly recommend trying them on in person to see which one works best for you. Perhaps you'll like a sub 300T over a 200T, or maybe you'll end up walking with something you hadn't previously considered at all. That's all from me today. Thanks a lot for watching. Please do hit the like button and help me out. And if you want to watch another owner's take, check out my review of the Nomos Club Sport Neomatic. Also, consider subscribing. Thanks. Talk to you in the next one soon.